Okay. So guys, at this point we'll be looking at splits, and then we'll look at search and sort and filter. So splits basically have two methods, which is split. Sorry, which is array underscore splits, right? And splits. Yeah, but they perform the same thing, but slightly different things. So for when trying to perform a split, basically, I'm going to do an example here. Say car equal to Toyota, right? And I'll say another car called Camry, and I'll just call this Benz for short, for which is basically Mercedes Benz. So if we're trying to, when we're using splits on an array, right? We're basically taking the items, individual items of this array, and then putting them in their own specific arrays. So this would be like car one equal to Toyota, right? Uh, two equal to Camry. Uh, three equal to Benz. So this is basically what is happening behind the scene whenever we're using splits. It takes each of these items and then turns them into their own specific array. So this is split. So we're going to perform an example using NumPy on how to split arrays. So I'll just be creating my array using the array function and then passing a list of numbers inside of this array, and then we're going to perform um, a split. So to perform a split, we call the np dot array underscore split, and inside of this, we pass in what array are we trying to split. We're trying to split this array with values of sequence between 1 to 5, and which is stored inside of this. So we call the r, and how many splits are we trying to have? Well, how many arrays are we trying to split this array into? Right? Let's say we're trying to split this into three arrays. Let's see what happens, and then we print R1, right? So if I should print R1, we have our first split, which is 1, 2, right? And we have our second split, which is 3, 4, right? 3, 4, sorry, 3, 4, and we have our last split, which is third split, which is 5. So this will split this according to until it executes, or sorry, until it exceeds its limit for the array, right? So if we want to access each of these arrays, how do we do this? We could do this using indexing, right? So array 1, 0, right, to access the first index. Array 1, 2, sorry, 1 to access the second index, and 2 to access the last index. If I should print this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all splitted into their own respective arrays, right? So I'm just going to revert this code back to what it was, do a CLS. The next thing I want to show is we could actually still make splits, 5 splits here, and this will split this individually, array 1, array 2, array 3, 4, and 5, into the individual items into their own individual arrays. If I should do 0, you could see now we just have one inside of just one array. But what if we said, okay, we're having 5 values here and we're trying to split these 5 values into 10 arrays, right? It doesn't make any sense because our our values does not equate the division of 10. It's not up to 10 for to split it into 10. So there's no possible way you could actually split this or share these values into 10 arrays. But watch what happens when we say 10. We call a number that exceeds the length of the array. So I'm going to print this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have done this and then do a CLS here. Then here we have our array. So we have array 1, array 2, array 3, 4, 5, and then it stops here. And then from here henceforth, we have array 6. But what happens is that array 6 is empty. Array 7 here, which is empty here. Array 8, array 8 here, but this is empty. Array 9, but this is empty. And array 10, which is also empty. So what this is going to happen is going to create more precedence array more array of precedence, but it's going to assign an empty value to each of those arrays. If 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 the amount of splits you're trying to create is above the maximum value inside of your array. But we could actually still access the last array here. And watch what happens when I print this. It returns to us an empty array. Even if we print index 7, it's going to return to us index 7 because at this point we only have 5 values, right? And from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it provided those arrays, but they are all going to be empty. Watch what happens when we say, okay, the third, we print the third item and then it returns 4 to us, which is basically at index 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? So that's it for array splits. Okay, so how do we make use of, we've seen how to use the array split. How do we make use of the split method in um, NumPy? So yeah, previously we had this splitting these whole arrays into 10. Let's see what happens when we use the split here. Remember, the split does the same thing as the array split, but let's see what happens. Returns to us an error. It says array split does not result in an equal division. So what the array split does is that if the amount of splits you're trying to create is above the maximum values in the length in the array, it's going to throw an error. So there's no possible way you want to split 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into 10 different arrays. It's not possible. So let's watch what happens when we say, okay, let's split these guys into 5 different arrays. Let's see what happens. Right, okay, that works. I'll get rid of this and then clean my console so everything will be clear. So this would work because we're splitting these guys into 5 arrays, so each of them will take 1 array each. But let's see what happens when we say, okay, split this into 1 array, right? Now it works. It's just added all of them into still one exact array. Let's see what happens when we say split into 2 arrays. Return an error. So if you could take a minute or seconds to pause the video and then figure out why this returned an error. Whereas without no further ado, the reason why this returned an error is because the split it performs splitting based on sequence precedence. So it starts here. Okay, the task is to split this whole arrays, right? This whole value is into 2 arrays. It looks here, and what it does is that it has to balance, like the both arrays has to have the same amount of items inside of it. If not, it's going to return an error. But this is different for using array split. Array split does not care about that. So what will happen is he checks here, okay, I want to make 2 splits, right? Okay, how do I share these 5 values into 2 arrays? Okay, the first thing is, okay, take 3, put in 1, take 2, put in 1. This would not work when using split. Split is going to return an error, right? Okay, it comes, okay, take 2, put in 1, and then take 3 here, put in 1 again. In the other one, it's not going to still work, right? This would only work when we have 6 values, where it can proportionally share equal values to both uh, arrays. So it comes here now and say, okay, take 3, put it in 1, and then take another 3 and put it in 1. So everything is balanced now. So that will work. So let's bring this, then see for ourselves. You see, voila, that worked. We could also access this by indexing, and we have our first array. If we say 1 as well, we would also have our second, which is 4, 5, 6. So this is everything for array splits, using array split and split